Now, let's talk about instance methods. Previously, we have talked about instance attributes. Now, let's talk about the methods that process these attributes. So, as a reminder, we have a class student. So far, we create one method, its name init, a special method which is the constructor, and we specify all of these attributes for this student. Now, let me say that an object from the class student can enroll in some classes. So what I mean by can enroll in some classes, which means this empty list here of classes should be filled by the classes that the student enrolling in. So how to do that? I'll define an instance method. So I'll start by the keyword def. Then I'll say enroll. After that, I will pass self. So keep in mind, whenever you define an instance method, self should be the first parameter. After that, I'll specify the name of the class. So I'll say class name, colon, and then here I'll say self.classes.append, because it's a list, so I can append something to that list. And in this case, I want to append the class name. Okay, great. Now let's define an object from this class. I'll say new student1 equal to student, and I have to give initial values for ID, Jacques Ma, and age, which is 25. And let me create another student. In this case, let's say it's Jean Do. And here within enroll, I'll say print self.full name. Okay, great. So far, I have defined a class student with constructor and one method, which is enroll. And I have defined two objects from this class. Let me just correct this. It's new student 2. Now, let's see how I can call this method, which is enroll. So how to call instance method? Simply, I'll say new student1 dot, so I'll use the dot operator, and then I'll say enroll, and let's say physics. Run. Look here, Jacques Ma has been printed. Why? Because I use here function which is print self.fullname. So what we can understand from this, in case of instance attribute, automatically the first parameter will be passed. So what is the first parameter? It's the object that's calling this method. So in this case, new student1 is calling this method enroll. When I print full name, I get Jacques Ma because this is the new student1. Now, to check the effect of this method, I'll print before and after. I'll say new student1 dot classes and new student1 dot classes. So I will rerun this cell in order to redefine the object. And now I will rerun this cell to see the effect of this method. So look here. Before calling this method, I got an empty list because when we're creating an object, the list is empty. When I use enroll method, enroll will take the class that the student enrolled in and will append this class name into the classes list. And this is what I'll get. I'll get a list with one item, which is a string, which is physics. So it's quite easy and it's quite straightforward. Now, sometimes you can call this method in another way. It's up to you. Usually I use this method, but if you want to use another method, you can call the method using the class name itself. So what I mean by that? Look here. If I say student, which is the class name, dot tab, this will give me a list by the names that are accessible by the class. And one of them is enroll, which is my method. And look here. Now I am calling the method from the class name. And because I'm not using the object itself, so I have to specify for which object I am calling this method. So in this case, the object will not be passed automatically to the method. And you have to specify for which object you are calling this method. In this case, it's a new student1. And after this, you have to specify the value that you want. So in this case, I'll say math. After that, I'll run this print statement again in order to see what new student1 will have in the classes list. Let me print here. You will see that the student Jacques Ma, so this is printed because I am printing here this name, has the following classes in the list classes: physics, math, and math. Math appeared twice because I run this cell twice. So the takeaway from this code session is when you want to call an instance method, you can use either the object name dot the method or the class name dot the method. In the first case, the object will be passed automatically. In the second case, you have to specify explicitly the object that you want to call the method for. And that's all for this code session. Thank you very much. Now let's recap what we have learned so far in this lecture. First of all, we have talked about instance attributes, and we see that these attributes belong to the class instances, not to the class itself. After that, we have talked about instance methods, and we see that these methods has access to the instance attributes in order to handle them and process them. After that, we learn how we can add instance attributes, and we see that we are doing that usually by defining the constructor method, which is init. And within init, we pass the first parameter, which is self, which represents an object from the class that is currently being defined, and usually we attach instance attributes to this object using the dot operators. Once we define these instance attributes, we can define instance methods. And as you see here, instance method is just a normal function in Python. We use the def keyword to define it, and then we list all the arguments. And within these methods, we are handling and processing the instance attributes. And as usual, I say please don't forget the colon after the method's name and list of parameters, because if you don't add this colon, you will get a syntax error. Please refer to the challenges available in the lecture resources in order to practice what you have learned in this lecture. Thank you very much for your time, and if you are available, join me in the next lecture.